So I guess that is what a Suicide Squad movie with zero studio interference feels like. James Gunn crashed back into the comic book movie sphere with the Suicide Squad, an action-packed, emotional roller coaster that checked off every level of my mania. Not even an emotional roller coaster, really. More like one of those slingshots where it's like nothing for a couple minutes, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, feelings! Waller calls on Task Force X, and we get a mix of the first mission's crew and a smattering of new guys. That's how I'm deciding to view this whole movie, by the way. The first one was the first mission, the origin of Waller and her Suicide Squad. And this is just another mission with a new set of villains brought in. Sequel, reboot, who gives a fuck at this point? It's just another issue in a comic run, basically. That, to me personally, is a way better kind of world building. You know, it's inserting history. We're hearing about the famous Suicide Squad, so they're known clearly amongst the villains. And I think that's just a better way of filling in backstory. And I think that's much better than just having a couple character cameos that confirm whether it's in one universe or another, just so that people in the audience can go, hey, I know that fucking guy. He's from the other movie. When it comes to the characters, I loved almost every performance. But the ones that definitely stood out to me was Danielle Melchior as Ratcatcher 2, David Dastmalchian as Polka Dot Man, and John Cena as Peacemaker. David, because he brought the Polka Dot Man to life, a character that I never thought would be expanded on, let alone put in a movie, in a hilariously twisted way. Gunn also did a great job at shining a light on what it must be like to be a Z-list comic book villain. And honestly, I felt for the guy. Daniela, as Gunn said, is truly the heart of the film. I mean, she keeps everyone grounded and pure to an extent. She's pretty much an extension for the audience. I mean, she's not really a villain, just someone at the whim of the U.S. government. Aren't we all? Special shout out to Taika Waititi for showing up just to make me cry. That was chill. And Cena, you know, brings the classic stuff that he's kind of really good at, is that muscular guy humor where he's very articulate, but he's also physically threatening, and you don't expect that from him. But what I end up being excited about was the fact that he's more than just, you know, a bloodthirsty psycho. I mean, he's crazy, clearly, but he's more complex than that. He's got his own, you know, principles and things, and he's an unbendable character, which I think is an infinitely more interesting type of character than if he was just, you know, than I think what the trailer showed, which is I'll kill everyone and anything. I think that kind of plays his more complex character nature in more of a humorous light, but the movie really dove into how much more of a complex character he is. And it makes me so much more excited for his HBO Max series. And that brings me to the movie sense of humor, which something I adore about the sense of humor and just the general levity of this movie is that it's seriously silly. Does that make sense? It's so fucking common today to include this weird, mutated form of self-aware comedy. Every moment that's whether serious or ridiculous has to be tagged with a line from some character acknowledging how serious or ridiculous it is. And it just comes off to me as a sense of insecurity in the content. Like the creators are so worried that they or the project will get made fun of for its ridiculousness or seriousness that they undercut it before anyone else gets the chance to. Meanwhile, it's precisely when those ridiculous moments are embraced and taken seriously that makes them infinitely funnier. Serious silliness can create such an awesome sense of empathy between characters, and it gets completely dampened when you have one of the characters in a quiet moment following everything go, boy, that sure was dumb, huh? I just really appreciated the level of this movie's earnest absurdity more than anything else because it's so rare. DP Henry Brom enhances what's on screen with this insane electricity, using camera techniques that remind me of 80s action movies like Commando and Lethal Weapon. Not to mention the majority of the effects were practically done. A real explosion on set affecting the actors in a way that CG never can will always be a personal choice of mine. And if you've been following me for a while, you know I fucking love blood and gore in movies. The more ridiculously excessive, the better. And this is full of that stuff. You know, bullet pops, axe slices, limb from limb being torn, just overall bodily damage. The R rating magnified the entire film and really allowed it to stretch its legs. The action set pieces are enormous and intricate, weaving back and forth into each other, almost telling their own stories by themselves. The Harley sequence that Gunn talked about a couple months ago is easily my favorite of the entire movie, and that's saying something because this movie is full of them. And the Bloodsport Peacemaker dick measuring contest is some of my favorite moments of just physical comedy in a very long time. The movie's just overflowing with hilarious creativity. The soundtrack had its own momentum and balance, but we all knew that would happen. It's an automatic win with James Gunn. The guy knows how to tie a movie together with just the right music. Overall, this movie can be submitted as evidence that when you give a filmmaker room to be creative, not tying them down or restraining them or forcing them to fit a mold that just does not work for their aesthetic, there's bound to be awesome and unique, more importantly, burst of creativity. And that's one of my favorite things about this movie is that it is 100% itself. If you're able to, I definitely recommend going to a movie theater and seeing this. I know it's on HBO Max, but this is not a movie you watch on TV for the first time. You know what I mean? You got to be in a theater, in that atmosphere, surrounded by people where you're all laughing and cheering and you're kind of like all staring in silence, all knowing you're sad at the same time. That's what this kind of movie is. It's a movie theater movie. And if you want to hear spoiler talk, check me out on my podcast, How's It Going to End? Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow me on all the socials and all that shit. And that's pretty much it. See you later.